This is gonna be not so much a creepy by extension, not so much a creepy extension of this other video I already made before, of what kinds of content and personalities don't exist. It could be a part 2 of that. It could also be just its own video for something related to it. Otherwise, I could just call it part 2. What kind of content creators personalities don't exist. So yeah. As for people, I'm gonna start with personalities first because I'm already I have an idea how I'm gonna word that right now, and I'll get to content later. But personalities, this is gonna sound a little superficial and materialistic and even somewhat of a fantasy, but like sometimes I look at avatars of people's like, profile accounts, whether they're like cartoon related or anime related or even just their actual real life face or some other picture for the avatar. I'm like, dang, it may not be real. It may be real, but not my business. It may not be related to me. It may not be worth a comparison. But that avatar represents something that they think to put in that image, and I can't help but kind of irrelevantly wonder if the avatar that they resemble and the person that they actually are, both things are things that don't technically exist in the real world yet, or haven't existed. Even the real person and the avatar that's resembling them on the literal internet, if those things are there, but they resemble something that I can envision in my own imagination of something else that doesn't exist in real life, that thing I wish existed. That thing I admire. It doesn't have to exist, but I hope it does exist. The avatar exists, and that person in real life literally exists. But the inspiration I get from that draws me toward an ideal, an idea that I wish existed and hope existed, but I'm okay if it doesn't exist. So you might kind of be like, what the fuck, Tony? What kind of abstract philosophy is this? This doesn't even make any sense. Like, kind of the point of much of these videos for now, but you know. But yeah, that's just the strongest example I can make right now. That sounds like a really good idea to me, but you know, it's like there are many times where I've had them before. I'll make these odd examples right now. I've seen some of the people reposting like clips of like my favorite shows and movies and TV shows, and when I see their avatar and I know their I can observe what I think is their personality from them speaking. So thinking what they will be in real life, or even if I do know them in real life, even if I do know these people in real life or know them to an extent of who they are, or if they're in my friend circles or whatever. However I observe them, and I'm like, damn, this avatar and this personality, this image, both literal and imagined, is inspiring me to think about something that I wish existed. So those people and materials literally exist, but what I'm thinking of might already exist or would deserve to exist, and that's how I come down to things like that last video. What kinds of personality and content does exist? And speaking of which, let's get back to content real quick. Content that doesn't exist. Part 2. So, yeah, I didn't plan this out for a reason, but I want to get through with the personalities part first, real quick. That sounded really cool, by the way. How I worded that. Really straight up for like a mirror too. The content that does exist, that inspires me about content that doesn't exist. Basically, it would be things like, I'll watch. This is like just one example or two I'll give very quick. The first example is when I watch 5% of a content creator's content, and it's the content that they think that's a little bit alternative to what they usually do. It's alternative to their niche for one thing. Their niche could be generalized anyways in a good way, but so to speak, let's say their alternative content nonetheless is something different from their niche, which their niche could be something very bare bones and edutainment or informative or entertainment or educational. It could be something that's very specific. It has to have a topic, it has to have a field, it has to have a purpose, has to give something to the audience, has also give something to maybe could hopefully give something to the creator themselves, hopefully. And I'm a little bit the perpendicular, I'll be the opposite of that apparently myself. So you'll get to know that over time if you haven't already. But for the most part, let's say this creator mostly makes content for a reason that might be overindulged, unfortunately, but at least is there for a good enough of a reason that's disciplined. Even that's against my philosophies a little bit apparently. So, anyways, basically this creator makes mostly content about something. And it doesn't have to be defined, which would be my own preference, but yeah, again, not about me, about them, whatever. This can be confusing for other reasons. And the 5% alternative content that they make is something that I'll personally favor to watch, even more than their main content. And it's not because I don't like their main content, it's because I think about the 5% alternative content they make, I'm like, damn, what's even in this 5% alternative content isn't even enough of what I really want, what I truly want. But it gives me enough of a front cornerstone to be like, man, if this literally exists like this right now, At least I'm grateful for that. But it inspires me to think of the content that I don't really realize or don't think exists. In the alternative frame of that, the imagination I give for that, what I'm seeing out of the 5% alternative content, and I imagine that content. I'm like, that kind of content I wish existed or hope exists, and I'm like, wow, I don't need that to exist. Again, like the personalities thing I mentioned earlier, I don't need that to exist, but I'm glad that this inspired me to feel like this, because it gives me something to look forward to. It gives me something to think about. And it's not just that content on YouTube or personalities of people are the only things I think don't exist in certain ways. There are plenty of things in this life that I don't think exist in a certain way. Not so much that they're permanent to not exist ever again, or never can exist, or impossible to exist, but like things that I wished would have been revealed to me earlier, but I'm not going to hold a grudge against that. I know that they can exist. I know that some of my visions are possible. I know that many of them are even possible to closure.